Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda, a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. All right, welcome back to the show. Yedda here as always. Can you believe this is episode lesson 35? Crazy stuff. We've got like over 50 in the book. I'm just like blown away that for 35 times I have come down here and sat, literally shut up and sat down at the bar, at the mindfulness bar, to just be with you, to talk to you, to educate, to share. You've seen some guests come along. We've got some really cool ones coming up in the next few. And I'm just sometimes, I think about it and I'm like, gosh, I'm really lucky. Not only am I lucky to get to do this, to be with you, to talk, to teach, to educate, to empower, maybe entertain, maybe in my own mind I entertain, I don't know. But gosh, I really just the gratitude and the feeling of being able to just really be in this work, to share, to just make whatever dent I can in the world, to empower people, to just bring their best selves forward. It's an honor for me. I love what I do. I wake up every day and I know I have good days and bad days just like everybody else, but I do wake up and I go, wow, I get to do this for a living. I get to come down and hang out with Robin. We got our camera, we got our lights, camera action going on. So I'm just really feeling really grateful today and grateful that I guess I'm going to go into, I know I'm going to go into teaching you the 4 stages of your unfolding. And this is such an honor. And I mean, seriously, you all, I'm not kidding about this. This is real sacred stuff for me. We're on sacred ground. When I teach my online courses, my girls know this and my guys that I work with, I ask people to take their shoes off, literally, because when we take our shoes off, and we do this before I'm actually doing it as I'm talking to you, so you can't tell, if you're on video, you can't see it either, but I'm taking my shoes off. The reason why is because we are on holy ground. Literally and figuratively, when we start to walk into your inner world and we start to really see these stages of unfolding that start to happen when we shut up and sit and we go within. And I don't know about you, but man, I find the coolest stuff inside of me. I mean, I could get lost in there. Sometimes I do. And I hope you can too, because the truth is you are the greatest love of your life. I am the greatest love of my life. I don't put that burden or expectation on anybody anymore because I love being with me. That's what happens when all this work comes together and it unfolds and you live in a place of gratitude and joy. And, sure, do things happen? Absolutely. But you can still be with them because they're not going to last forever. It's not permanent. It's not personal. It's not perfect. My 3 Ps to live by. So this space of being able to be with you all and educate and work with you is it's such an honor for me. And I feel really blessed. And I think about, actually, as we were getting ready to do this episode and just kind of, thinking through, and I do sit for a moment and I think and I ask and I contemplate on where we're going to go, what we're going to talk about, because there is a we here. Something that really comes to me when I think about this is I spent years diving deep into this work to heal, to grow, to evolve. And I think about, I spent, I look back around this 8 to 10 year window when all of this started for me. And, the first 2 years were kind of a deep intellectual space. The next 2 years when I really kind of did the deep dive, when my marriage ended and I really went off the deep end, literally and figuratively, those 2 years were some of the darkest, most desperate, despairing times of my life. And would I want to go back to them? Absolutely not. Am I beyond grateful that I made it through it? Oh my God, yes. I know I never have to go back there again though, because I did the deep dive. But my point is I was sitting here thinking about these stages of unfolding and all these nuggets and kind of, systematized kind of synergy of lessons and modules and teachings and what I get to do for a living. You guys, this book and this coaching and this course is only one aspect. I mean, I do one-on-one work, I do custom stuff, I create. This is only one content that I've created. It's my core content. But this way of being and learning and living is something I'm super, super grateful for and feel really called and blessed to do. But I just want to share with you, when I was in those deepest, darkest moments and this unfolding was happening for me, I never in my wildest dreams thought that it would be something that would come together as a quote unquote product to help other people. I was so desperate to find health and healing and wellness and well-being in my soul and in my being and in my beliefs and patterns and behaviors that I went into what I would call almost like this mad woman experience, where I was just reading and pulling parts and pieces and kind of sitting in the middle of this kaleidoscope of a shit show that had been my life in this breakdown. And as it started, and I really cultivated being in this moment, and I started to see the unfolding occur, everything changed, everything. And so there was no, I'm going to start a business and this is going to be the way I'm going to. If you had said to me then that I'd be sitting here on a podcast sharing with you and also teaching in a lesson on an online course and speaking to people and writing books and coaching clients and helping people to move through these stages of unfolding, I would have said to you that I wouldn't have even understood the words. It would have been like you were speaking Greek to me. And so what I am now aware of is I leaned in hard to crazy. I leaned in hard to curiosity. I leaned in hard into reading, learning, certifying, absorbing, collecting, acquiring, letting go, clinging, aversion. I went into all of it. And when I was in the middle of all of that, I now look back and sometimes I read these words and I look at this, and this one in particular, because I remember when I was doing the reading about the stages of your unfolding and how I was shutting up and sitting, and when things just started to kind of click and come together. And actually even before I got in here today to talk to you all, I was talking to a client and I said, when I first learned to shut up and sit with Gina, which was way back in the beginning of my story, and if you remember, I remember walking into that room and literally there was a room and there was Gina and there were 2 chairs and a window opened. That was it. And Gina was, dressed in a pair of, I think, like leggings and a loose shirt and a scarf around her neck, shaved head. And I walked in and I thought, oh my God, I've lost my mind. What am I doing here? Paying this woman to sit in complete and total silence. There was no therapizing. If you remember, there was no storytelling. I literally was paying someone to sit across from me in silence with our eyes closed for an hour. I must be crazy. And what I remember as I was in between sessions with her, going home and reading and just, so far deep into this, there was, I'd like to say there was no social life. I still engaged somewhat with family and friends. Everything in my life was a total shit show. I had no capacity for relationships. I had no capacity for anything. And I went so far into this. And my hope and my prayer is you don't have to do that, because some of this hopefully will help you. But I do know along the way, the work that I was in, that I was healing, yes, I had some lifetime trauma. Yes, I had a lot of demons and dark things come up. I want to just acknowledge that, I know that some of us and some people listening, and I know because I work with a lot of you out in the world, some of us do have some really serious trauma that comes up. And it might be easy for me to say, just go into the darkness, open that door, let them all come out. This is hard stuff. And I don't pretend to say that I know how hard the stuff is for you. And I don't pretend to mean when I say, because one of the very first stage of your unfolding is we live in a victim mindset. I want to really make sure that you hear me on this. If you have been a victim of some type of trauma or abuse or really awful, horrible situation in your life and you need extra help and support, there is a place and there are other resources outside of shutting up and sitting and mindfulness and this work. This work is just when you are ready and you desire and decide to show up and say, I'm going to shut up and sit with it, then this work happens and these stages unfold. However, if you need additional resources, please seek them out, because I am speaking to the masses here, and I do realize there are varying degrees of trauma and drama. And so wherever you are on that spectrum, know that you're loved, that you're seen, you're heard, you're valued, you're not alone. And know that this piece of whatever you're seeking in your synergy of support coming to you because you're here It offers whatever it is and whatever you need in this moment, but it doesn't pretend, and I don't pretend to be all things to all people. And so when I talk about being a victim, again, everything I do is cafeteria style. So the question you do have to ask yourself is, does this speak to me, about me? Is it something for me? And if it's not, you have permission to just gently set it down mindfully and take what does speak to you. So I want to make sure I name that, because I just remember being in that place and I know what my place was like. But I don't pretend to say that my place of suffering and victor and becoming a victor over my victim mindset is exactly going to be the same for you. It's going to be different for all of us. And that's the way this works. But if you need additional resources and support, please, by all means, reach out and ask those around you and find the other support that you need, because I don't want to ever make someone feel like if you can't do it on your own, you can't do it at all, because we need each other. But I am getting you to right size a little bit the awareness of what do I have control and power of right here, right now, in this moment where I am free, not be attached to or dictated by the old story or the old trauma or drama that is not happening and real for you right here, right now. Now, if something is happening and you are a victim right here, right now, by all means, also reach out, get the help, and find the resources you need for that as well. I don't pretend to think that mindfulness just makes it all go away. It's not a Mary Poppins drug. If you really literally are a victim, please, 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 please reach out and seek help. And so as we move into this, I want you to know that when you do the work of mindfulness and you do start to see things unfold, remember, everything's energy, everything's shifting all the time. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others. We've got lifetimes of behaviors and beliefs here that come up for some of us. So the very first stage, when we start to unfold, as you wake up and become more aware, eventually what happens when you're in your mindfulness practice, you actually begin to see how this presence and awareness gives you more data to see, more access to information, more resources, more awareness and capacities and really abilities to say, what other story could I write right here in this moment with what's available to me in present moment awareness? So I want to go through these 4 stages of your unfolding. And, when I think about this, just kind of when I first did my waking up, and I really thought and believed for a long time I was a victim, and rightfully so. I could have, there were probably 30 pages that did not get transcribed and included. Well, they got transcribed. They didn't get included in the manual in the book. And I remember Emily, who helped me write this, my editor, and she said it wasn't necessary and it wasn't kind and it wasn't relevant. So we left some of that out because it just wasn't necessary. And she said, and it's going to keep you in the space of being a victim, and you're not a victim anymore. And I knew that, but I really was kind of in a safe space of purging with her. So it was really nice to be able to hear, oh, yeah, I've moved through my stages of unfolding. And so in this book, the first stage of unfolding is victim. We believe something outside of ourselves determines our destiny, and we give up our power to someone or something else, and our perception is creating our reality and story, which you know now, which is keeping you a victim, me a victim from the outside circumstances, or a victim of the outside circumstances of our life. And I lived there for a really long time. It was my mother's fault. It was my father's fault. It was my stepfather's fault. It was everybody's fault. It was my husband's fault. It was, my friend's fault. It was my community members. It was my boss. I could give you the list. It was everybody else's fault. And finally, one day I sat down and I thought, what's the common denominator? What's the pattern here? What's the repeating theme here that's going on? And the repeating theme that was going on was I was showing up with that limiting belief in a way that kept me a victim. So I would do things to make other people keep me hostage to the story, to the narrative, the belief that I thought was who I really was. And then when I started to wake up and I started to go within, I realized I can rewrite those stories. We've done this before on the show. And in this lesson, you're going to be reminded, you can rewind, rewrite, and respond in a different manner. I'm not asking you, and I love this, Dr. David Drake, who I've studied with for years. You guys have heard me talk about him. So I did his narrative coaching certification, his integrative development practitioner certification, finishing his narrative release certification as we speak. And what I love about his work, not only is he very, very wise and has some incredible content to offer and is just really a global kind of thought leader in this area, but he was talking on a call recently and he said, Narrative is important because it's the story that we tell ourselves, our thoughts, our stories. And then our words come from our feelings, which is how we communicate our story. And then the deeds that we go out and actually, do in life is just a third level of creating a story, and which all makes up our reality. But he said, when we were talking about trauma, he talks a lot about grief, releasing trauma. And there's an art and a science and a magic and a really sacred, safe space of helping somebody walk across that threshold of the old story into the new. And there's a sacrament, there's rituals to this in narrative coaching. It's a very holistic, experiential way of working with clients. So I learned it for myself, but then, the years I've spent now coaching and taking clients through that process in groups and one-on-one. One of the things that he said when we talk about releasing grief of the way it could have been, should have been, what happened to us, or releasing the trauma of what someone did or what happened to us, we really think about our narrative. And so here's a question for you in your victim. And when you're in this first stage and you are the victim and you start to wake up a little bit and you go, oh, what if I don't want to be a victim anymore? So here's what he mentioned. He said, so when we use language, we have nouns and we have verbs. And when we talk about trauma, think about talking about it in noun versus verb. We're not taking away your story, just like we're not taking away what happened to you. We're not acting as if it never happened. So if you can talk about trauma, if you can talk about the victimization as a noun and understand that that was an event, a noun is a people, place, or thing. A verb is the narrative and language we use to move us beyond the victimization, that story of what happened to us. And you could say, for instance, that, being left alone as a small child and my mother not coming back was very traumatizing to me, which is a verb, which means there's energy that you can carry forward to do something with, versus, I had a really traumatic childhood, Yedda. My mother left and never came back. Which keeps you, do you hear the difference of the noun versus the verb of the narrative of the story? And I thought this was really powerful because I remember sitting there in the pit of my own despair, trying to make sense of all of this. What I was doing, why I was doing it, the patterns I learned. Went through a period of time, I was furious with everybody. I went through a period of time where I didn't speak to my mother. I was so mad at some of the things that I had experienced because of her. And then I went through some period of anger with my father, with my biological father. I went down the list, but it wasn't until I got to the core of all of it that I realized it doesn't matter. Because they're not all here right now. I am here right now. What am I going to do with the knowledge and the narrative of what I know now as an adult who has the rest of her life ahead of her to create whatever reality she wants? I don't want to be a victim anymore. I am sick and tired of the story and all the old ways of being. And so that's where narrative coaching really freed and started to free me up in the story I was telling myself and others. I didn't want to get into the verb energy of holding on to the past. I wanted the verb and the energy of my story to take me forward. So I got out of the victim mindset. I got out of the victim narrative. I got out of the victim relationships. I got out of the victim everything. All the things in my life that kept me a victim, gone, 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 gone. And I did a deep, 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 deep dive. And when I say deep dive, there were a couple of years where I just disappeared. Disappeared. People didn't hear from me. They didn't see. If I did show up, I was a shit show for a while, but I was in such a deep learning and letting go. I couldn't show up in the world because I was like this middle ground. I was letting go of what was. I didn't know what was going to quite come yet, but I did know one thing. When I was doing this work and reading about these stages of unfolding, I was moving out of the victim mindset, which then took me into the second stage of unfolding, which is called manifesting. So once we let go of victimization, we realize we can move into a stage of manifesting. And so it says here in the book, it says, you learn to take responsibility for your thinking, words, and actions. Your thoughts, which are simple units of mental energy, which you know now, can now be used to manifest your intentions. You've seen this, you've heard this on the show, you've seen it in the book. Intention plus attention equals manifestation. So if my intention was to get out of victimization, my attention had to be placed on what were the people, places, and things that would take me away from the old beliefs, patterns, stories, and behaviors of who I had been, and then where would that begin to manifest in my life to who I desired to become? Because I'm still Yedda. I still have all my quirks and my fun aspects of my personality and my idiosyncrasies, and I don't change who I am. And I didn't have to let go of the entirety of who I was to figure out who I wanted to become. I just really learned how to cultivate and take the wounds and actually really literally transmute and transform them into my wisdom. And when I did that, I realized, oh man, I can actually start to deliberately create and manifest things in my life. This is really exciting. Well, then when that happened, and remember, I'm still shutting up and sitting with Gina. I still do that with her, but I'm sitting with Gina. I'm reading all these books. I'm going into this deep, deep place of manifestation. And I was in it to win it. I mean, there was no coming back. My prayer in every moment of darkness was, keep me here. Don't let me turn back now, because I cannot come this far again to quit again. I have got to keep going. And I just asked to just be held right there, right there, right there. Do not leave this place. And as I started to realize I could show up and actually unfold, remember, we've removed the barriers now that are preventing us from the real true definition of success, which is present moment awareness and joy that's found there. Now that joy starts to unfold and come out into the world in different ways. And it says, you're no longer a victim, Yedda. Yep, these people might have done this. They did the best they could at the level of awareness they were at, just like you did and just like you are right now. And I was able to begin to manifest forgiveness. I was able to begin to manifest self-love, self-worth. I was able to manifest self-mastery, self-regulation. All of these things started to come about because I changed my narrative, because I was shutting up and sitting, because I was able to look at my thinking, feeling, behaving model and then flip it and say, I'm going to show up and behave this way, which then naturally creates this feeling, which then the thought becomes an easy byproduct. And I started seeing everything shift. Things started working. Things started happening. I just found myself going, oh, is that what happiness feels like? Is that what joy feels like? Oh, and I just kept dropping deeper, deeper, deeper. And then what happens when you get through that second layer of really unfolding, of the manifesting? You go into the third one, which is called channeling. And here, this is really cool. So it says, as you grow, unfold, and evolve into a new and higher level of consciousness, you gain insight and realize that something larger is working through you. You allow, yield, and surrender to life, feeling and being good. You let go of all separation. And that's really what the ego's job is, because remember, it's kind of forgotten. It's gone into that dark place of survival. It's created shadows, and it's created a lot of separation. And once I started to really understand, out of victimization into manifestation, I could open myself up to something greater than me. So in my shutting up and sitting, it doesn't look like or feel like or sound like harps or fairies or angels or anything's coming. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. The channeling was, I could open myself up in that silent, still awareness. Those gaps between the thoughts started to get a little bit longer, a little bit quieter. That's where the conscious and unconscious mind line up. And when we do that, we open up a portal to unlimited access of information out in the universe. That's what it means to channel information. And I'm not talking about somebody that's got a crystal ball that's doing psychic readings in a trailer over off of, Highway Route 1 down the street. I'm talking about you and I and every other human being on the world has the ability to tap into all of the pure potentiality in the universe. That's what channeling is. But you've got to get yourself into alignment, those higher levels of consciousness. And I got to tell you, if you were to ask me, consciousness is God, it's source, it's universe. That's what it is for me. That's what it is for a lot of these teachers and saints and sages in the world. When you let go and you step into something larger and bigger working in you and through you, you channel and come up with ideas, inspirations, solutions, love, resources, unlimited pure potentiality that will blow your mind. And it just started coming. And I went, whoa. I remember doing that as a kid. I don't know if you did. I remember as a kid just getting insights and ideas. As an entrepreneur, I've always been that way. I'm just naturally that way. If somebody comes to me and has an idea or a problem, I immediately just like bam, 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 I can go right into boom, boom, boom. And I call it a download. And I know it's a download when it's not my thought that I've forced or manifested. I will just hear or know, oh, what have you thought about? Or we all have that capacity. That's what wisdom is the channeling. But you only get it when you cultivate silence and stillness. And then once that starts to happen and that becomes a natural way of being, the ego stops chattering and blowing shit up in your head because it doesn't fight with that voice, because it knows it actually gets to put its feet up and have a little vacation for a little bit, because its needs are met, your needs are met, separation and protection aren't needed anymore because you're cultivating a safe, really psychologically safe space in your own being, and you're taking that out into the world. Which takes me to the fourth stage of your unfolding, which is called being. You simply and easily just be. Presence in the present moment is never in absence. I want to repeat that. Presence in the present moment is never absent when you're fully being. You feel that all is one, connected and infinite, and you see that you're connected and are just like everyone else, and you understand you have a moral obligation to collectively contribute to sharing your new awareness with others by being in the present moment. And when I talk about that, that's what compassion is. Compassion is I'm so connected and I've unfolded to a place of being that when I see someone else hurting, I see me hurting, and I want to help them because I'm connected to them and they're connected to me. I'm not enabling, I'm not being codependent. That's not what I'm talking about. I see other people, but when I see them, I see me, and when they see me, they see them. That's the way this work of mindfulness and shutting up and sitting works. So we do the shutting up and sitting. Yes, it helps us to be with pain and suffering, but it allows us to unfold, to really remember that analogy I've used before about the rosebud. The rosebud holds really, really tight, but in the beginning it holds tight because eventually it blossoms and opens into something really beautiful. We are the same way. It's a beautiful metaphor. You can't force and you can't keep yourself in a bud. You naturally unfold as you do this work into just being. And when you're being, you can operate at a totally different level than what we're used to, which the ego is doing. So I don't have to do as much anymore because I already am it. I'm being present. I'm being loving. I'm being kindness. I'm being joy. I'm being equanimity, which allows me to then be what I call a game changer. And, this whole idea of a game changer, which, we all have the potential for being a game changer in different areas in different ways in the world. You don't have to just be a global game changer, a Henry Ford or a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs. You're a game changer in your own life, in your own psyche, in your own mind, in your own meaning making. And that does have impact on other people. And so when you do this work and you really unfold into being, they actually did research. There's three things that game changers possess. And I teach about this in entrepreneurship at a couple of different universities. So I've done a lot of research on this. So believe me on this. But the research showed, here's what game changers possess. 3 characteristics. And I talk about this with my leadership coaching clients. First is they've shown that the global game changers are actually independent of the opinion of others and are self-thinkers who trust their own gut and intuition. So what that means, and it's all written right here in the book, is you're resting in the seat of your true self rather than your ego. Okay. Second, you become detached from outcomes and stay in the process of growth and evolution, knowing how to quiet your fear-driven voices. You've let go of your limiting beliefs and aren't worried about what is coming next because you're fully immersed in the present moment. That's a really big one. Third, you have no investment in power or control over others, and you love being simply to be on purpose. So these are 3, and they took all of them, all the major global game changers, and looked at this. Now, some of them, of course, we all have egos. We're going to have egos for the rest of our lives. But these 3 characteristics of global game changers. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's really what mindfulness cultivates, the ability to be independent of the opinion of others, to self-think, trust my own gut and intuition. Okay, got that. Being detached from the outcome and staying in the process of growth and evolution. Remember the flow of energy, the change literally of how energy moves. How to quiet my fear-driven voices, telling the ego, shut up and sit down. I got this. All right. The third one, no investment in power or control over others because my beingness has value and worth all of its own. I don't have to do anything to get my needs met anymore. And so this really, if it's going way out there for you, and some people go, oh yeah, that sounds really, really great, but that's not my life. It can be your life. I promise you, this is not just something I do and my clients do. I meet and work with people all over the world who have worked their way all the way into the fourth level of their unfolding, which is being. Mindfulness allows you to keep going deeper into being, and you don't have to work as hard at doing. Necessary to do at times, but we want to operate from a place of being. So I want to just kind of wrap up here with 3 things, and this is what I talk about with my clients. It's in the book, but I want you to know you only ever have control over 3 things in your life: the thoughts you think, the images you visualize, and the actions you take, which is our thinking, feeling, behaving process. You have complete control over that, which means if you do the work and you shut up and sit and you go into a lot of this science and psychology and all these resources, this is a process to free and liberate you and your mind so you can unfold into the fullness of being, that radiant, gorgeous, beautiful self, that seat of the soul that we all have access to. That's what this work is all about. So this isn't, shake your leg 3 times and chant this prayer and do these different things because I made up a way. No, the way to real, true, lasting joy is to be in real, lasting joy, which is available right here, right now, in this moment. So there are lots of other resources I could get into. I'm not going to go into it today, but I am, as we move into kind of looking at our notes of where we're going next, because it's really exciting. Our whole next section in the book is how to train your mind. We're really going to dig into some mindfulness teachings and practice. I've got Philip coming back. Philip he was here talking about the 4 components of being human. Philip's going to be teaching about really, really digging into what's this whole enoughness around mindfulness. When I say train your mind, you show up and you shut up and you sit every single damn day. That's what you do. And I don't care if it's for a minute, for an hour, whatever your life is like, but you show up and cultivate silence and stillness. You train the muscles of your mind so you can master your mind and you can be awake and aware and available of what you're thinking. That's where it all starts. So this narrative, this space, and so Philip's going to come back. He's going to teach us about this. He's going to go a lot deeper into cultivating a belief system of enoughness, which is really the core belief system that we all struggle with as human beings. And, I'm going to add some more resources as we go. There are 9 levels, seriously, of personal and spiritual development. Most of us go to level 2 or 3 and we stop. Philip and I are going to talk to you about going all the way to number 9, which is I am enough, and what that looks like and how to cultivate really getting into that space of being able to show up, to shut up, to sit with yourself so that you can go out into the world with the belief that I'm enough, which also empowers and allows other people to believe that they are enough. Because if you remember this, you can't give to you can't give something to someone else that you don't first possess for yourself. So how could you help other people believe they're enough if really secretly in the recesses of your own mind, you hold the belief, the limiting belief that you are not enough? So we're going to move into that. We're going to talk about those 9 stages and levels of growth. And we're going to talk about how to cultivate and train your mind to get you all the way to the cultivation of the belief that I am enough. So that's our next episode coming. I cannot wait to come back and chat with you more. It's always fun. It's awesome. And hey, you know what? Even if it's not for you, it's awesome and fun for me to be in this moment. I'm in joy right here. So if all I'm doing is talking to myself, I win. And I hope you do too. I'll see you soon. Have a great day.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be